And welcome once again to another edition of the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge, presented by Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. This is a special Thanksgiving week edition. I will have one more show that will actually air on the Georgia Alabama Sports Live show. And then I'm going to go out of town for Thanksgiving. I hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving week. All the schools are out in Muskogee County and over in Alabama. And so we've got a lot of sporting events to talk about. I'm going to preview Clean Old Fashioned Hate. You got Georgia Tech. We've got some chaos in the college football playoff. I will get into that. We've got NFL news, just everything going around, and plus everything local to Columbus, to include high school football, River Dragons, and Columbus State. So happy to be here. I've actually started condensing my shows, and I used to have a show 5 days a week because I would actually send it to the radio station and it would air on WQEE from Monday through Friday from 2 to 3. Well, that is no more. I'm actually doing this just on my Facebook page and on Georgia Alabama Sports Live's Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I'm also going to have this on Apple Podcasts. It was a long and great relationship with WQEE, but it has come to an end. I want to thank Ryan O'Neill, the station manager, for giving me that opportunity to air my sports talk radio show, which is something I've always wanted to do since I was a kid, was do sports talk radio. And I got to be on a station in Noonan for almost 3 years. The first show aired on January 31st of 2022. And the last show aired last week. So I'm really excited that I had that opportunity on some unforeseen circumstances. The station is actually going to go to all music. They're changing the format of the radio station. So we're ending this partnership. I'm excited to possibly work with Ryan O'Neill again, and possibly I can get on another sports talk radio station in the near future. But as for now, this episode will not air on WQEE as they are changing the format. All right, let's go ahead and get right into the show. College football chaos. Yeah, I will get into that. I'll talk about high school football. I'm actually going to talk more about high school football playoffs and high school basketball on Wednesday's show. So I'm going to save that for Wednesday because actually, I don't have to go a full hour because this show is not on WQE anymore. Usually when I produce this show, I'd make sure that it was an hour. I'd put the commercial breaks in. I would edit the show, and I would send it to Ryan every single day. And the show aired on WQEE from 2 to 3. And I'm going to miss it because it was nice just being on the radio. Talking about a radio station I was on right after Rod Peterson and right before Braves Country Radio with Mac McGee and the Armchair Quarterbacks, two just fantastic guys who have great sports talk radio shows. Bryce Kuhn was also on that radio station. We've had such a great time. I was very blessed to be a part of the WQEE family, and I'll never forget them. And I'll never forget Ryan O'Neill for giving me that opportunity. All right, let's not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and dive right into the news as far as college football goes. I'm going to start with the Georgia game. We all expected that Georgia would beat UMass 59-21. And, well, with all the other things that happen around college football, the Georgia Bulldogs are going to Atlanta. They have clinched a berth in the SEC championship, and it wasn't because of anything they did. I mean, Carson Beck, he threw for 4 touchdown passes. They will take on Georgia Tech on Friday, the rare Black Friday game between Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech ended up getting a 1-point win against NC State, 7-4. I mean, I'm not going to say they're going to spoil Georgia's college football playoff hopes, because even if Georgia Tech beats Georgia, Georgia's going to Atlanta, and if they win, they're in the college football playoff. Now, if they lose, they'll have 3 losses, and they're going to be in the same boat with this other team. This was probably the most shocking game of the entire college football season. I did not see this coming. Jalen Milroe had 3 interceptions. Now, there was a really horrific call, a touchdown that was negated by Ryan Williams. I thought Alabama was going to roll against a struggling Oklahoma team that was going into this game 5-5, but Alabama loses 24-3. They didn't just lose close. They lost bad, and they lost ugly. This was the last time that Alabama had a blowout. They lose to Clemson in the national championship game in 2019, 44-16. Now, say what you want. People have criticized Kalen DeBoer. Nick Saban would never do this. This is the first time that Alabama has lost 3 games since 2010. I'm not saying they're completely out of the college football playoff. We might see more chaos happen. What if Michigan beats Ohio State? What if Ohio State loses to Oregon in the Big Ten championship? There's a lot of chaos that could be happening in college football. So I'm not going to say that Alabama is completely out. But they're that team, when the new college football rankings come out on Tuesday, they're that team that is got a case to try to get a college football playoff berth. Because I actually had a poll on my X page. Which team is more deserving of a college football playoff berth, a 1-loss Indiana team or a 3-loss Alabama team? Alabama has played a very tough schedule, but they have played very inconsistently. And they look like world beaters against LSU. Jalen Milroe, I said he was going to be a Heisman candidate after the win over LSU. Alabama looked fantastic against Missouri. They looked terrible against Tennessee, and they looked obviously terrible against Vanderbilt. 3 losses, unacceptable. And guess what? We've got an Iron Bowl next week. He's got something to play for, because the Auburn Tigers, they rolled Toomer's corner after the 4 overtime victory over Texas A&M, 43-41. My big question is, where was this all year? And please, can we move past Peyton Thorne? I mean, he was okay, but Auburn's up 21-0, and they play conservatively, and Texas A&M comes back, and this was a game that Auburn definitely needed. It was the biggest win of the season. They actually have won in spite of Peyton Thorne. In fact, Peyton Thorne has cost them some games this year, and Auburn has a chance to play Alabama in the Iron Bowl with a chance to go to a bowl game. How great would that be for the Auburn Tiger fan base if they could beat Alabama? Kalen DeBoer's first year playing in the Iron Bowl. And if Auburn can beat Alabama, they are going to a bowl game, and Alabama will have their worst season since 2007. This is going to be a disastrous year for Alabama. I think it's too soon to try to fire Kalen DeBoer. I think that Auburn, you give Hugh Freeze 1 more year, because I think they're going to figure out the quarterback position. I think that you've got Hank Brown. I think Hank Brown is the quarterback next year. I think that Deuce Wright is probably going to be that quarterback in waiting. He flipped to Auburn. Auburn's going to have some commits that are going to flip. And, Hugh Freeze does recruit very well. It's just the play on the field hasn't really, been there for Auburn. I mean, they should have beat Cal, should have beat Arkansas. They should have beat Missouri, and they should have beat Vanderbilt. So Auburn has had a tough season, but they could salvage this season if they could beat Alabama in the Iron Bowl. That is absolutely what the goal is going to be. All right, let's move around. And what I do on this show is I just go over 10 games. I have my thoughts. I give my analysts my insight and basically breaking down the game. We're going to go to LSU beating Vanderbilt. It was a close game. I mean, a close game in Death Valley. LSU has no business playing a close game to Vanderbilt in Death Valley. I think Brian Kelly is officially on the hot seat now. Yeah, I'm sorry to say that. I mean, I don't know, LSU fans, especially when you have the quarterback Underwood who flipped to Michigan, Brian Kelly is definitely on the hot seat. I mean, are you kidding me? They brought Brian Kelly in from Notre Dame to win national championships. LSU, who's won 3 national championships with 3 different head coaches, that's the standard. And when you barely beat Vanderbilt and you're just trying to salvage this season, they play Oklahoma next week. I mean, we're talking about an LSU team that might not even get a good bowl game. They're unranked. They're now 7-4. They could lose to Oklahoma next week and go 7-5. What a disaster of a season for LSU and Brian Kelly. They're going to have to figure out the quarterback position. I think that they're also going to just have to figure out how to win on the field because the talent is there. But Brian Kelly, he might be way in over his head. This is not Notre Dame. This is LSU. And you were brought here to win national championships. And Nick Saban is no longer in the conference. This is no excuse that Brian Kelly cannot win at LSU. Unacceptable blowout loss to Alabama in Death Valley. And then barely beating Vanderbilt. They should be ashamed. All right. How many Georgia fans are actually rooting for Florida against Ole Miss? You know, the last college football rankings, Ole Miss was ranked ahead of Georgia because of the head-to-head. They both had 2 losses. Florida gets another big win, and they defeat Ole Miss. This was a game where, you know, I'm a believer in DJ Lagway. I think that DJ Lagway is the guy. Florida State's 6-5. They're going to beat Florida. Florida is 6-5. They're going to beat Florida State next week to go to 7-5. With the schedule Florida had this year, Billy Napier should be coach of the year. I mean, to get this team to 7-5 is astonishing. And Ole Miss, they play in the Egg Bowl, 8-3. They're not going to the college football playoff. They could still try to get a good bowl game. And you know, Jackson Dart and all the skill players that Ole Miss has to have 3 losses this year, it's disappointing. They never should have lost to Kentucky. That was unacceptable. Speaking of Kentucky, Texas ends up beating Kentucky. Texas is 10-1. If they beat Texas A&M, they are going to Atlanta to face Georgia in the SEC championship. But if Texas A&M wins, remember, this game's in College Station. These 2 schools have not played since 2011. This time it's an SEC matchup. You know, the talk about this game was Kentucky had a very physical and tough defense. I mean, Georgia just beat them by 1. You know, Kentucky ended up rolling through their schedule. I mean, they've had a disastrous of a season, 4-7. It's just not getting it done for the Kentucky Wildcats. But 31-14, Texas ends up winning this game as they get prepared for the Lone Star Shootout next week. All right, now let's talk about the big noon kickoff game. This game, I saw this game. I had a lot of hopes for Indiana. I thought that Indiana could possibly pull this off. If Indiana pulled this off or even kept it close, I would be a believer in Indiana. And I would say absolutely they'd be deserving of a college football playoff berth. But they haven't played anybody. They get blown out by Ohio State. Indiana was up 7-0. I started getting some hope. I'm like, ooh, this might be a good game that could go down to the wire. Ohio State's the best team in college football. I keep saying that on this show. Will Howard, 2 touchdown passes. You have Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Ibuka. Your 2 wide receivers have been playmakers. It's the defense that really stifled Indiana. I felt like the wheels started falling off when Ohio State jumped out to that 14-7 lead after that muffed punt, the punt return that actually got blocked. But Ohio State 38-15. That touchdown late was a garbage touchdown. Ohio State playing Michigan next week. Look, you can never count out like a rival, especially you throw out the record books when it's Ohio State and Michigan. How much pressure is on Ryan Day, who has lost to Michigan his last 3 tries? How much pressure is on Ryan Day to beat Michigan in the horseshoe next week? I expect Ohio State to win this game. Obviously, they're the best team in college football. I also expect them to beat Oregon in the Big Ten championship. This is stuff that I think is going to happen. But, college football is very tricky. Later on in the show, I'm going to have my latest college football playoff projection. It's starting to look as similar to the committee when they select the teams on Tuesday night, which, by the way, that is an event. I love it. It is just great to see. Some of the other scores that I want to run by. BYU, their chance of getting to the college football playoff has been shattered. Arizona State is now top dog in the Big 12, and this was a big win for the Sun Devils. The Sun Devils are back. You remember the late 90s with Bill Snyder, Jake the Snake Plummer? Yeah, they are back, I'm telling you. Kansas has been playing spoiler to all these Big 12 teams. Kansas was a good team. They were faced with injuries. Jaden Daniels, very good quarterback. They get a big win against Colorado, 37-21. First, they beat BYU. They did beat Iowa State, and now they beat Colorado to go to 6-5. Colorado's Big 12 chances and a college football playoff berth has been shattered. Still a good team that's going to make a bowl game. They're going to get a massive rating in their bowl game. What Coach Prime has done, and by the way, Juju Lewis from Carrollton has committed to Colorado, so Coach Prime ain't going anywhere. This is a big win for Kansas as they play spoiler. And how about Neal? 207 yards with 3 touchdowns. Look at that. And I still think Travis Hunter is going to be in New York. He is a Heisman contender. And we'll see how that goes. Now, there's a team I was really rooting for, not just because I'm in the Army, but Army was playing Notre Dame at Yankee Stadium. Army was undefeated going into this game, and Notre Dame just imposed their will. 49-14. Notre Dame is definitely a college football playoff team. And Army still going to play Tulane in the American Conference. I think that Navy game after the American Conference doesn't really mean anything. I seriously was thinking of a scenario. What if Army goes undefeated and then they already make the selections for the college football playoff and then they lose to Navy? Well, that cannot happen because Army is not going to get a group of 5. I don't see Boise State losing any more games. So Army is not going to get a group of 5 berth. It's going to go to Boise State. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and take those graphics off. It is time for my college football playoff projection. I always have fun doing this. It's starting to look like the committee's selection. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. There you go. I got Ohio State number 1 because I got them beating Oregon in the Big Ten championship. Georgia is going to play either Texas or Texas A&M in the SEC championship. Right now, Georgia's my favorite to win this. Now, here is the big controversy. Miami will probably have 2 losses. I've got them playing in the ACC championship. And I also think, let's see, Miami's got 1 loss. So I think Miami wins out. They'll have 1 loss. Georgia will have 2 losses. So a 2-loss Georgia team, which is basically ranked ahead of Miami right now in the AP coaches poll. I do believe in the college football playoff rankings that Georgia is going to be ahead of Miami. So Georgia's going to get the number 2 seed. Miami's going to get the number 3 seed. It really does not make a difference because that's a collision course where they're going to face each other in the semifinals. So Georgia's 2, Miami is 3 because I got Miami beating SMU in the ACC championship. I got them beating Syracuse this weekend, which is a very tough game. If they lose this game, Clemson is going to be facing SMU in the ACC championship. All right, Boise State is ranked 4th and not Arizona State because Boise State in the latest AP poll, and I'm sure when the college football rankings come out, Boise State is ahead of Arizona State. So that's why Boise State is the number 4 seed, and Arizona State is the number 12 seed. And So here's the playoff projections because Oregon, right now they're undefeated. They're going to have one loss. They're going to be the 5 seed. Texas is going to be the 6 seed because I do think Texas beats Texas A&M, and they will have 2 losses, but they're an SEC school, so they're going to be ahead of Penn State. Right now, Penn State is sitting comfortable. They could either be a 6 seed or a 7 seed, but Penn State is very comfortable right now. Not going to play in the Big Ten championship, but Penn State with 1 loss, fantastic season. Same with Notre Dame, not playing in a conference championship. I got them at 8, and I think the committee is matching these teams up based on, these are some intriguing matchups. How about this? The battle for Indiana. I mean, when you think of Notre Dame, you don't think of Indiana football. They are in South Bend taking on Indiana. That's going to be a fun game. I think that the voters would like to see that. Tennessee's going to get in because they're going to be a 2-loss SEC team. Now, if they lose to Vanderbilt, they're out. And then that could actually help Alabama get back into this. There was a spot that was kind of open. There are some teams that are considered SMU. How about Clemson? Right now, SMU is ranked 9th. Clemson is ranked 12th. Alabama is ranked 13th. I'm interested to see what the College Football Playoff Committee decides on Tuesday, but I do think that Clemson will jump Alabama. They are a 2-loss team compared to Alabama, which is a 3-loss team. But South Carolina can play spoiler. South Carolina can knock out Clemson out of the College Football Playoff, and nobody wants to play South Carolina right now. I mean, how fun is this? These college football matchups this week, it's Thanksgiving weekend. This is my favorite time of college football season. I cannot wait for these matchups. All right. So these are my 12 teams that I project are going to finish in the college football playoff projections. These are not my rankings based on what is happening right now. This is what I am predicting is going to happen when the season comes to an end. And there are my winners. Notre Dame's facing Ohio State. Tennessee getting the upset win over Penn State, and they will take on Georgia in the Peach Bowl. Texas versus Miami. Oregon versus Boise State. Here we go again, just like that regular season matchup. And here are my semifinal projections. Once again, Oregon and Ohio State, 3rd time's a charm. Texas, Georgia, 3rd time's a charm. They say it's hard to beat a team 3 times. Well, that's why I got my national championship, Ohio State and Texas. I think Texas finally gets it done and beats Georgia in the semifinal. They already lost to Georgia. They already lost to Georgia in the regular season. I got them projected to lose to Georgia in the SEC championship. I mean, it's in Atlanta. It's practically going to be a home game for Georgia. But I do have Texas finally getting over the hump and beating Georgia in the semifinals, just for the simple fact it is hard to beat a team 3 times. But Ohio State is going to find the answer to make the adjustments. I think that losing to Oregon and Autzen was an anomaly because Oregon has a great home field advantage, and Will Howard, all he needed was 1 more second, and Ohio State would have won that game. And Ohio State is your national champions. And Ryan Day can get a little sigh of relief. Relax. You're not on the hot seat anymore. Look, I'm telling you, if Ohio State doesn't win the national championship, Ryan Day is officially on the hot seat. I mean, this is the most talented roster that anybody has ever had. He brought Chip Kelly on to be the offensive coordinator. Yeah, the seat is going to get warm even if they lose the national championship. Wow, that was a lot of fun. Hey, why don't we take a break? When we come back, it's my NFL reaction show. You don't want to go anywhere. It is the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge, and we'll be right back after this quick commercial break.
Introducing Gatorade Water. Alkaline and electrolyte infused for great taste. Gatorade Water, always in motion.
And we're back here on the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge, presented by Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Remember, I don't do an hour anymore. I'm only doing 2 shows this week. I think that I'm going to try to do 3 shows a week. I know that I started doing 5 days a week because of WQEE. And this show was an hour long, and it was great that I could talk for an hour, but just because, everything that's going on, calling games, Georgia Alabama Sports Live, we got coaches shows. We are calling games. Tonight, we've got Opelika and Glenwood. I will be on the call for that. Tomorrow, I will be on the call for Kendrick and Central Talbotton. The girls will start at 6. The boys will start at 7:30. And then I'm hitting the road to go out of town for Thanksgiving break. And then don't forget, we've got high school playoffs this weekend as well. I will talk about that on Wednesday's show. But let's go ahead and do the NFL recap. Falcons were on a bye. But the team that I want to start out, because I really have a bone to pick, I watched this game. Everybody knows I'm a San Francisco 49ers fan. And congratulations to the Green Bay Packers. Congratulations to Bobby Z. Your team won. The 49ers did not have Brock Purdy. They did not have Trent Williams. They did not have Nick Bosa. Of course, Brandon Ayuk is out. Talanoa Hufanga is out. This team is so decimated by injuries. Remember 2020? When the 49ers missed out on the playoffs and they completely lost all their starters. That's what it seemed like. Nick Bosa is probably the most impactful defensive player on the 49ers. You could tell Jordan Love had time. Jordan Love torched the 49ers on third down. Josh Jacobs had 3 rushing touchdowns. I had just a slight, hope. I was hoping a little bit when the 49ers grabbed that touchdown to cut it to 17-7. Knew they were going to get the ball to start the second half. But the Packers dominated time of possession and yardage in that first half. They controlled the clock, and I'm here to say they were the better team. And even if the 49ers were healthy, if they had Brock Purdy, if they had Nick Bosa, if they had Trent Williams, I still think this is tough to go into Lambeau and beat a Packers team that's up and coming, and they look like a very good team that could make a deep run in the playoffs because they're young, and Matt LaFleur is a good coach, and Jordan Love is a good quarterback, and I think the addition of Josh Jacobs has been incredible. That guy is hard to stop, and the Green Bay Packers get a very convincing win over the San Francisco 49ers. 49ers are in trouble. They play Buffalo, who's going to be fresh off a bye on Sunday Night Football next week. And even if they get everybody back, I still think there's a reason why Buffalo is a touchdown favorite. If they go 5-7, they are in trouble. Now, luckily, the division is winnable because they're only a game out. But I think that the San Francisco 49ers are in trouble. Their window is closing. And it was a great run. Kyle Shanahan's been there since 2017. They went to the NFC Championship in the Super Bowl in 2019. And they went to the NFC Championship in 2021, 2022, and they went to the Super Bowl in 2023. And I think that their run is coming to an end. I still think that you give Brock Purdy a long-term contract because he's probably the best quarterback available. You saw a difference. Brandon Allen was named the starter on Friday, and he just looked lost. Brock Purdy is going to win some games for you. Now, I don't think the 49ers are going to be a dominant team. I think that you're going to have to start paying guys like Trent Williams and Nick Bosa, Fred Warner. But I also think this team is old, and part of me wants for them to punt on this season, play a last-place schedule in 2025, get a high draft pick, and let's go to the Super Bowl next year because they'll have an easy schedule. That's really part of me that's thinking, let's punt on this season. But Christian McCaffrey, I was just completely shocked that he did not have an impact. I thought he was going to have an impact. I watched this game in frustration, and it was tough. They got a tough one next week, Sunday Night Football against the Buffalo Bills. All right. Another game where the Kansas City Chiefs just narrowly pulled it out. You got to give credit to Carolina because Bryce Young actually looked pretty good. Adam Thielen looked pretty good. Chuba Hubbard with that go-ahead 2-point conversion play. It was 27-27, but you gave Patrick Mahomes way too much time on the clock. Carolina did a good job coming back in this game, but Patrick Mahomes made the play of the game when he ran down the sideline and got the Kansas City Chiefs in position to kick the game-winning field goal. And this is not like an elite team. The Chiefs have a lot of holes. They are just winning close games because they are a smart team, well coached by Andy Reid. They got one of the most clutch defenses in the league with Steve Spagnuolo as the defensive coordinator. They're going to win a lot of games, but I'm sorry. I think that Buffalo could beat them in the playoffs. I honestly look at this Buffalo Bills team and think, yeah, that's a team that could beat them in the playoffs. All right. You got Minnesota, Chicago. Chicago came back and tied this. 30 seconds, they recover the onside kick, but Minnesota, a very good team that looks like they are going to be a wild card team in the playoffs. I think they'll probably be a number 5 seed because they ain't no stopping the Lions. The Detroit Lions are the best team in the NFL. I'm excited to watch them play the Bears on Thanksgiving. This is one Thanksgiving matchup where this is the main course. We are getting the main course before your mom and your grandma are cooking that turkey, because this is going to be fascinating to see the Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving. And then, of course, the Dallas Cowboys play the New York Giants, and then you got the Dolphins playing the Packers. All right, so with that being said, pretty good win for the Dallas Cowboys. Cooper Rush starting to look pretty good. That fourth quarter was just chaotic. It was just one of those crazy fourth quarters, but the Dallas Cowboys end up getting the big win. Congratulations. The Denver Broncos continue rolling 29-19 over Vegas. Las Vegas is the worst team in the NFL. I honestly think that. And let's go Seattle beating Arizona. Both teams are 6-5. Both teams are tied atop of the NFC West. If you're a 49ers fan, you're happy with the score because the 49ers are 5-6. And they are only one game out of the division. They still got to play the Rams and the Cardinals. So think about this. The 49ers can get in the playoffs just because this division is not all that great. Sunday Night Football, the Philadelphia Eagles, world beaters, beating the Rams on the road. Saquon Barkley is the best free agent acquisition. I've said before that the Eagles are leaving a lot on the table. I think that they are starting to feel their groove. And it's looking like it's going to be Eagles, Lions in the NFC Championship. These are the two best teams in the NFC. And Saquon Barkley, he's going to win MVP. Right now, he is the leading candidate for MVP. My big knock on the Eagles was their defense couldn't stop anybody last year. I think their defense just continues to improve. Remember, this was a desperate team that got Vic Fangio as your defensive coordinator, Kellen Moore as your offensive coordinator. Why? Because they don't have a whole lot of faith in Nick Sirianni. He is just not a very good coach, and the Eagles are winning in spite of him. So a big win on Sunday night. Some of the other games, Dolphins, Tua Tagovailoa with 4 touchdown passes. Got a short week. They're playing the Packers on Thanksgiving. Good win for the Miami Dolphins, who are just trying to sneak into the playoffs. I know that it seemed like their season was going to go haywire, but Tua comes back, and all of a sudden the offense looks great. All right, we got some other games that I want to talk about. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they pull within a game of the Atlanta Falcons, which have the bye. Falcons play the Chargers next week at the Benz, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just completely embarrass the New York Giants on the road. I think Tampa's got a lot of momentum to try to win this division. If the Falcons continue to slip like they have, there's a possibility that Tampa Bay could win this division. Some of the other NFL games, the Titans ended up beating the Houston Texans 32-27. I was a little shocked with that score. Thursday Night Football, Cleveland beat Pittsburgh 24-19 in the snow. You got the Monday Night Football game tonight, Baltimore and the Chargers. Baltimore is 7-4. The Chargers are 7-3. That's going to be at SoFi Stadium. That's going to be a lot of fun. All right, why don't we take another break? And when we come back, high school football, River Dragons, Columbus State. You don't want to go anywhere. It's the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge, presented by Georgia Alabama Sports Live. We'll be right back after this quick commercial break.
Introducing Gatorade Water. Alkaline and electrolyte infused for great taste. Gatorade Water, always in motion.
We are back. It is the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge, presented by Georgia Alabama Sports Live. And we had some high school football playoffs. That's right. How about those Central Red Devils getting another win in the playoffs? They hosted Hoover at Garrett Harrison Stadium, and they are ready to go. A big time win. I was watching this game on the NFHS Network when I was down in Statesboro. Andrew Alford with a touchdown pass to Dalen Upshaw. Hoover was one of the favorites to get to the state championship. They did beat Thompson. They are a very talented team, and Central gets the win. So the stage is set. You got Thompson and Central in the state championship. Here we go again. 2018, 2019, 2021, 2023, and now 2024. Don't ever count out Thompson. They won 4 straight state titles. They lose to Central last year. This is going to be a lot of fun. Protective Stadium, Wednesday, December the 4th, up in Birmingham. I'm definitely going to watch this game on the NFHS Network. The Carver Tigers get a big win over Ringgold, 35-14. Congratulations to Coach Pierre Coffey and that school on the hill. They are taking on Pierce County, the defending 2A state champions. Pierce County, their only loss was to Appling County. Remember, Stetson Bennett played at this school. Pierce County coming to Otis Spencer Stadium this Friday, 7 o'clock. You got to come down to Otis Spencer and catch this game. I know it's Thanksgiving week. Hopefully a lot of people that are in town for Thanksgiving got to watch this game because you got to support the Carver Tigers. It's Carver. They are the school in Columbus right now, still in the playoffs versus everybody else. Let's go out and support the Carver Tigers. There are some other teams that I do want to talk about that did face, some playoff opponents. LaGrange, huge upset. LaGrange gets the 38-22 victory over Sandy Creek. How about this score? What an incredible performance. And LaGrange Grangers, they are going to be facing North Hall in the playoffs. This is the first time since 2008 that the LaGrange Grangers are in the quarterfinals. The Grangers starting to look like that team in the early 2000s that won those multiple state championships. And speaking of state championship contender, the Manchester Blue Devils with a 26-14 victory over Wilcox County. How about that game? Now, they go on the road because of the GHSA coin flip. They were a number 1 seed. They're going to have to play on the road because the bottom of the bracket won the GHSA coin flip. And they're going to have to play undefeated Lincoln County in the quarterfinals. But I still think Manchester, which, by the way, their only loss was to Harris County to start the season. I think Manchester is going to be fine. This is going to be a great game. And this has been a great show. Thank you to everybody that has watched the show. Remember, I'm not on the radio anymore. Just before I leave, River Dragons, they've lost 3 straight. They're trying to regroup. They're going to be playing the Zydeco this Wednesday at the Columbus Civic Center. They lost to Carolina 6-0 and 3-2. Columbus State Soccer gets a big win, 3-0 over Catawba College. 6-0. They will play on the 3rd round on December the 6th. Columbus State Lady Cougars basketball team ends up losing to Tuskegee. They are 3-2 on the season, and Columbus State men's basketball team is taking on West Florida tomorrow. And so check that out. Great time to be a sports fan here in Columbus. And don't forget that you can like and subscribe to the Facebook page. I'm also on Instagram. I'm on the X. And I'm also on TikTok. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. And we will see you Wednesday.